Sagittarius, welcome to your mid-month reading for the month of June. We're going to be choosing from an oracle deck as well as the tarot to get clarity on going forward, your current situation, any obstacles for the rest of June to be aware of, and advice around that. I gotta say, the reading right before yours, you should have seen the decks. I was shuffling them in the pre-shuffle. They were flying everywhere. The whole thing was just a mess. And you know, you can't help but read into these little signs when you're doing tarot, because that's what it's all about. And when I was shuffling your decks, I felt a major Chariot energy. Everything was, you know, there was much more precision. It was clear. It was just that sense of moving forward and strong. And I kept thinking about the bow, you know, the beautiful astrological symbol of Sagittarius and how they're aiming their bow and that strong path of the bow. So, or excuse me, the arrow. So it'll be really interesting to see what the cards have to say for you today for the rest of June. All right, so for all of these have been pre-shuffled, of course, but we're going to, sometimes I just like to shuffle one more time for good measure. Sagittarius, please make it clear, Spirit. All right, grace, interesting, which is much more gentle than the Chariot energy. It'll be interesting to see how this all works together. Grace. So, Morgan-Greer deck today. I've got the descriptions of the decks below if you'd like to check them out. All right. Sagittarius. Clarity on the situation at hand for Sagittarius. Any clarity where they're at? All right, we've got Page of Swords. Information, sometimes this is talk, sometimes it's gossip, that this is communication, this is messages coming in, and this is, I'd like to know about the challenge at hand or coming into the picture for the rest of June, something that Sagittarius should be aware of. Okay, Four of Swords, and we have the Chariot. What did I say? That's my hands going crazy. Okay. All right, so into the advice column about this challenge at hand for Sagittarius, into the advice column for Sagittarius, what advice do you have for the Chariot and the Four of Swords this month? All right, that work card, the Eight of Pentacles. All right, so Page of Swords, clarity on the situation at hand. There's information coming in, information, communications. Temperance, ruled by Sagittarius. The card representing transformation, alchemy. This does require some patience, unfortunately, and not always a well-known trait of Sagittarians. Patience is sometimes a challenge, but that's because you can so easily see where that arrow is pointed. All right, and then regarding this challenge at hand that Sagittarians should be aware of, we're not going to put this, actually, we're going to put it back in the deck, but I do want you to see the Seven of, wow, it's like the Seven of Pentacles and the Five of Wands coming out, just kind of as a hint there. Seven of Pentacles is the work that you're doing, being a little bit tired, but continuing on that work, and even in the face of opposition. And that's very much what this feels like. Even in the pre-shuffle with the previous reading where the cards were flying out and I just let them fall on the floor while I shuffled the next deck, and I just accepted it, and you know, accepted the clumsiness and the chaos. In high contrast with your reading, it felt like just moving forward, even despite any conflict. But so tell me why, I'm asking the cards, tell me why the Four of Swords and the Chariot is the challenge this month. I want to know why it's the challenge. Four of Swords and the Chariot. Okay. Okay, this is going to be really about communications coming in. I have a feeling that communications are going to steer you a little off the path You're gonna need, you know, it's like you feel very, very, you've been very sure in a deep place of where you're going, and some communications with somebody familiar. This could be an old friend or a family member, somebody that you know well, coming out of the woodwork with communications that might steer you off the path here. Maybe more clarity about the challenge at hand. It's going to give you some anxiety, possibly some sleepless nights. It might make you double up on your effort, you know, not double up on your effort, double back a little bit. And I want to move on to the solution now. Moving on to 8 of Pentacles. So paying attention to, wait a minute, I've put this work in and I've learned a lot from putting this work in. I'm actually mastering this scenario, this project, this situation. And you might be exhausted, but you are certainly determined. And that's a force, that's a superpower. Putting in the work. Solution, please, for this situation. 8 of Swords. All right. Yeah, now we've got, okay. All right, you've got the Tower. You have the High Priestess energy, following one's intuition regarding a shake-up, a rattle-up. The 5 of Swords. And this happy card of the 10 of Cups. All right, well, definitely going forward through finding the solution through this is hard work and following your intuition to get through a stuck place. You know, it definitely does still feel like Chariot energy of just bulldogging your way through it, basically, is like, you know, doing it while touching base on who you are and where you come from and what's internally going on. So it's not blindly bulldogging through it, but it's certainly tenacious energy. It's yeah, it just looks like, you know, things are just coming out of the woodwork. They're not going to be successful, but they're coming out of the woodwork this month just to kind of challenge your momentum, challenge your path, the path of the arrow. And this could be coming from family or friends, people that you're familiar with. It might challenge your, and it might be coming in the way of messages, text communication, texting, you know, or for some of you, emails and phone calls. But, you know, be aware of the anxiety it's causing, and remember this, that when you're willing to put in the hard work, there's very little that can steer you off the path. It's kind of like when it relates softly to this analogy. Remember when you started a new hobby or a new skill, right? Maybe a sport or something. There are so many mistakes to be made. You know, it felt like you're walking on this tightrope, right? Like you could teeter either way and feared a mistake. But as you mastered it, as you got better at it, whatever that skill was, the space to make mistakes it grew smaller and smaller, and then to the degree that making a mistake or falling off the tightrope just didn't exist, because if there was even a waver in balance, you knew how to right yourself. Does that make any sense? Like, there are no mistakes. Remembering that there are no mistakes, you know what you're doing. Yeah, staying on the righteous path, even in the face of could be some conflict for some of you guys, but some of it is stuff you can't even help. It could be having to do with Tower represents home and house, sometimes moving or making big changes to your house that can be shifting, basically. Things that when we are faced with things that we have no control over, this is when we call in the High Priestess energy, that intuitive energy. It's going to lead you right through this pretty effortlessly, even though it might not look like it right away. But yeah, this month is really about steering that arrow straight, steering that chariot through, regardless of what leaps out of the unknown, to challenge it. And I love your oracle card, which is grace. You can steer through with grace. But you know what? Some of you may not like reading out of the book. I'm a big fan of it when I do need clarity, and I would really like to see how grace connects more into your reading. So when grace dances into your movements of loving connectedness, You will recognize your reassuring lightness of step. And regardless of circumstances, be both humble and grateful for the perfection in each moment. Cultivate the eyes to see and heart to merge with these gifts as they unfold bountifully in your daily life, and soon you will realize that the darkest days are never so daunting as to be beyond the reach of grace. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, step strongly and forcefully, but gracefully. All right, I hope that resonated. If it did, feel free to leave a comment below. Please hit the like button and please consider subscribing. That allows me to notify you whenever I do a reading for you, but also to get these readings out to many more that can benefit from them. All right, you take care, Sag.